Even with all of that in mind, is it really fair for me to suggest that a lot of you, had you lived under those tyrannical regimes, wouldn't have been on the side of truth and justice, but instead would have been loyal, brainwashed cheerleaders for sadistic megalomaniacs? Is it fair for me to think that you would have been so gullible, so weak-minded, so unprincipled that you would have fallen for the classic divide and conquer and fear-mongering tactics of power-happy sociopaths, to the point that even you would have zealously supported the oppression and victimization of your fellow man and self-righteously condemned any who resisted or objected to such oppression? Well, yes, I think that is fair. Because that's exactly what I've watched a lot of you do for the past 2 fucking years. You know who you are. You're the ones who blindly believed and obeyed those in power and condemned anyone who didn't. You're the ones who didn't research anything, didn't question anything, didn't look at any actual data. Instead, you fell for ridiculous fear-mongering, and then you repeated it, and you despised anyone who didn't. You jumped on the bandwagon and then felt virtuous, mindlessly accepting and pushing an insane and destructive authoritarian agenda. You know who you are. And even though the power-happy psychopaths whose boots you've been licking all this time have been caught lying over and over and over again, you still mindlessly label anyone who doesn't bow and kiss the ring as a purveyor of misinformation. You hate whomever those in power tell you to hate without bothering to listen to a word they say. Even when the government lies are obvious, the fear-mongering is obvious, the actual conspiracy is glaringly obvious, not even hidden, you still deny it, and you still attack anyone stating the truth. And you tell yourself that it's because you care more, because you're more enlightened, you're more responsible. But that is a lie. You did it because you were scared, you were ignorant, you were gullible, and you were obedient, and you tried to pass that off as virtue. It was easier and felt safer to you to believe whatever you thought the majority believed, rather than having to actually think for yourself. And as others tried to counter the obvious lies, and counter the ridiculous fear-mongering, and counter the psychotic power grabs, it was easier for you to just decide that those people didn't care as much as you, weren't as informed as you, weren't as responsible as you. You followed the crowd without spending one moment trying to find the truth. You kept clinging to the utterly asinine notion that the dictates and mandates from the political parasites were about safety, health, and protecting the people. You cheered for more authoritarian control to the detriment of the freedom and health and safety of everyone you know. Because your feelings mattered more to you than the truth, and mattered more to you than your fellow man. Deep down inside, I think you knew that. You were just too much of a spineless coward to do anything else. No matter how many times the political opportunists were caught lying, no matter how many times they were proven wrong and had to change their story and contradict themselves. And no matter how many times the people who you scorned were proven right, you didn't have the brains, the spine, or the honesty to admit that you were wrong. That your obedience didn't protect anyone or make anyone safer. That your compliance didn't make you more caring and virtuous. It only made you a useful idiot who could be used as a pawn by power-happy lunatics. You kept mindlessly repeating whatever lines the talking heads fed you, talking about trusting the science while being utterly and intentionally clueless about the actual science and data. You enjoyed self-righteously lecturing others about how they too should mindlessly believe and obey political liars and crooks the way you do. It gave you a feeling of belonging and moral superiority to be part of a crowd of well-trained sheep, believing and obeying whatever ridiculous crap the state propagandists spewed at you day after day. You tried so hard to tell yourself that obeying tyrants and hating anyone who didn't made you informed and compassionate. So yes, if you're one of the ones I've been describing here, you are exactly the type that supported all of those historical tyrants, taking great pride in their blind obedience, delighting in condemning and attacking any who had the brains and the courage to actually question things, to speak out, and to disobey the insane and deadly authoritarian agendas. And now, as the truth is coming out all over the place, what you will probably do is get very quiet and hope that no one remembers how you supported and repeated the lies. You supported the destructive dictates and restrictions that destroyed millions of lives. You hope people will forget that you were a cheerleader for authoritarian evil. So if you want to deny that you would have done the exact same thing had you lived in those other times, in those other places, then maybe right here and right fucking now, you should stop empowering the worst people in the world. Admit you were wrong. Admit you were deceived. Admit that you helped cheer for immoral and destructive authoritarian coercion and injustice, that you helped push the agenda of megalomaniacs and murderers. And don't pretend that your supposed good intentions are a valid excuse for what you were part of, for what your compliance helped make happen. Unless you think that those who empowered those other murderous regimes in history should get a pass as long as they meant well. And once you've acknowledged what you did, then stop being an apologist for political psychopaths. Until you do, you don't deserve the respect and compassion of your fellow man. You've acted as an enabler of evil. Until you admit your mistake and change your words and your behavior, you don't deserve to be trusted or listened to. You don't deserve forgiveness. Like all the others in history who empowered dictators and tyrants, until you do what you can to correct your mistake, You deserve contempt and condemnation for the massive pain and suffering that you helped to create. And some of us won't forget.